We welcome from Washington, Benham Ben Taleblue, Senior Fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Thank you so much for joining us from DC. Benham, to start, your insights, this show of support, unprecedented. The US president here during a war. We saw the images of Air Force One on the tarmac in Tel Aviv, the hugs with Benjamin Netanyahu and the president as well. Your thoughts on what is unfolding right now between these two close allies?
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you, and I hope you and all your staff and associates at I-24 are safe and will remain safe. Here in Washington, we've been watching the conflict unfold and do think about our friends and acquaintances abroad at this time. Nonetheless, to your question, it's essential for Joe Biden to continue to communicate the message that he just did deliver in that earlier segment, publicly and privately to audiences, government and non-government across Israel, which is a show of unwavering, nonpartisan American support. This is in the U.S. moral interest, this is in the U.S. strategic interest, and actually it can help prevent the war from spreading and spreading in the worst possible ways. Iran and its proxies, as your previous correspondent mentioned, are watching, waiting, trying to respond to the onset of the war in Gaza by trying to threaten a multi-front campaign or a multi-front war against the state of Israel, trying to prevent Israeli officials from achieving their stated aims as to retaliating or potentially even destroying Hamas. And having this strong U.S. show of resolve, not just the carrier, but the U.S. president, actually meeting with the Israeli prime minister, can help bridge that gap, can help send that strong signal of resolve, which can potentially have deterrent dividends both against Iran's proxies as well as against the terror patron itself, the Islamic Republic of Iran.
So, Benham, help put the pieces of the puzzle together when we look at the role that Tehran is playing right now. On the one hand, we're talking about Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad inside Gaza. There is a strike right now as we speak in the West Bank. Syrian, never mind Syria, the Iranian entrenchment, which has been going on with proxies for months and months now. And of course, in Lebanon, we are looking at live images on our screen right now out of Lebanon, where Hezbollah is watching as well and watching what is unfolding as we speak in Tel Aviv. Talk to us about the pieces of this puzzle, how they all fit together.
Well, across the heartland of the Middle East, and in particular in conflict zones, the Islamic Republic has tried for over 4 decades to violently export its revolution in places where it did not have ideological resonance. In places where it did have ideological resonance, it was where there were marginalized folks, it was downtrodden, dispossessed peoples, where the Islamic Republic's message of violence carried some kind of resonance. Iran over the years has been able to create or co-opt different proxy groups that it controls ultimately, and it can control the cycle of violence, they can control this kind of cycle of hatred. And in every one of those jurisdictions you mentioned, Syria, there's the Assad regime, Iraq, there's the Shia militias, Yemen, there's the Houthis, Lebanon, as you know, there's Hezbollah in the Gaza Strip. There's certainly Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And then, of course, there's the individual or lone wolf acts of terror that the Islamic Republic has been able to be behind and support or help get weapons trafficked to in the West Bank. So trying to create a multidimensional circle of fire against the Jewish state, while also, of course, trying to watch and wait to see what events are going on the ground between Israel and Gaza to threaten to open up a different domain. But right now, the Islamic Republic is benefiting from the way the conflict is being covered in the Arab press, and is trying to push back on what you've seen over the past few years, which is this wave of positivity of Israel in the Arab world, this wave of normalization agreements that you've seen. And actually, one reason that I personally believe that the pale green light was given from Tehran to its proxies, even though there is more of a diffuse mechanism of control here, is simply because of the positive signs and the news you were seeing about the potential Saudi-Israeli rapprochement, which, as you know, that is on hold. The Islamic Republic is hoping that's not a temporary hold. It's hoping that it's a hold as long as possible. But Iran is trying to divide America from its regional partners and America's regional partners from one another, using the scenes from the current conflict.
And talking about nations in the region, Joe Biden was supposed to go later on in the day to Jordan and meet with King Abdullah, also Egypt, Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, and Mahmoud Abbas from the Palestinian Authority. That meeting not happening anymore. Reports that they might be speaking on the telephone later. But talk to us about the significance of that meeting, if it was in fact to have happened, and now the fact that it's being pushed out.
The fact that it can't happen is certainly a setback for U.S. foreign policy, in particular the diplomatic element. One remembers deconfliction agreements after other Arab-Israeli wars, and in particular Kissinger's shuttle diplomacy. But the inability to have the U.S. president land or even speak overtly, directly, and publicly with other pro-American or at least moderate Arab leaders in the heartland of the Middle East is, again, I would say, a setback for U.S. diplomacy in the region, and is a piece of news and is something that Iran and its self-styled axis of resistance benefits from. Again, Iran is trying to get everyone to disconnect the dots. Iran is trying to separate America from its regional partners. It's trying to make sure that America's message is quarantined, even though the U.S. president, as you mentioned, may be able to deliver the same message over the phone. The lack of that public image, the lack of that embrace between America and an Arab leader while the conflict is going on, and while Arab media is covering the conflict the way that it is, ultimately redounds to the Islamic Republic's interest.